I'm Jake. I'm 38, married, 2 kids, Sam's 9, Lucy's 7, and I used to believe in second chances, even for family. Especially for family. I grew up with that mindset drilled into me. Family sticks together no matter what. That's what my dad always said, usually right after ignoring something cruel my older brother just did or brushing off a snide comment from my mom with a tight smile. I used to think maybe I was just sensitive. Maybe I read into things too much. Maybe it was just my imagination that the spotlight always seemed to shine on everyone but me. But you know what's worse than realizing you were never the favorite? Realizing your kids inherited that same invisible status, and watching it happen in real time while everyone else pretends it's normal. It started slow, these things always do. Like that first winter scratch in your throat that doesn't quite go away. You feel it, but you shrug it off. Too small to make a fuss over. That's how it was with my parents and my kids. A missed birthday here, a forgotten school recital there. Little things. Things you tell yourself aren't worth bringing up because it'll just cause drama, and God forbid anyone ruin the group chat harmony. I'm the youngest of 3. My brother Mark is 41, successful dentist, lives 20 minutes from our parents with his wife and their twins. My sister, Rachel, is 36, an Instagram mom of 3 with a curated feed and a chaotic reality no one's allowed to talk about. I live a bit farther out, an hour drive, but I've always made the effort. We show up. Birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, cookouts. You name it, we're there. My wife, Emily, is quieter, observant. She sees things I try not to. Did you notice Lucy was the only one who didn't get a cupcake? She asked once after Rachel's youngest birthday party. I'd missed it. Thought Lucy just didn't want one. Or the time Sam was so excited to show Grandpa his science fair trophy, and my dad barely looked up from the football game before saying, "That's nice, buddy. Go put it in the other room." I laughed it off. Told Sam Grandpa was just distracted. I kept patching over the little moments like drywall over water damage, until the wall finally buckled. December was always chaotic. Our family does a big New Year's Eve bash, my mom's idea, because Christmas is too crowded and everyone's always too busy. That party has been tradition since before I had kids. It's the kind where everyone's dressed up, the kitchen is overflowing, and the champagne flows like a Pinterest dream. My parents go all out. There's music, catering, matching napkins, and speeches. Always speeches. Someone says something about the year behind us, and someone else toasts to a brighter future. This year, we showed up around 6. Emily in a dark green dress. Lucy had sparkly shoes she picked out weeks ago, and Sam wore the bow tie he hated because Grandpa liked it last year. I brought a bottle of wine I knew my dad liked and a few gifts for my nieces and nephews. The living room was already packed when we arrived. Mark's kids were playing with a drone, Rachel's boys had taken over the den, and my mom greeted us with a distracted, "Oh hey, come in," as she rearranged a centerpiece. It was the same kind of welcome you give a coworker you didn't expect to see. Not hostile, just lukewarm. She didn't hug the kids, didn't comment on Lucy's dress or Sam's tie, just told us to make ourselves at home, and walked off before Emily could even take off her coat. I felt it then, something was off. But it was New Year's. I didn't want to overthink it. We mingled, made small talk. I helped Dad carry in a tray from the garage and tried to talk about football, but he kept checking his watch. Later, I saw Rachel pull Mom aside and whisper something, both of them glancing our way. That itch came back, the one in my throat, the one I thought I'd outgrown. Around 9:30, Mom tapped a fork to her glass and called for everyone to gather in the living room. Okay, everyone, just a quick moment, she chirped. We have a little surprise for the grandkids who made us extra proud this year. I stood near the back with Emily and the kids, smiling, expecting some generic praise or maybe even a little something for everyone. That's how it always was. But then she pulled out a box. A sleek silver box with small wrapped presents inside. And she started calling names. To Ellie for getting straight A's. Applause. To Mason for learning to swim. Applause. To Grace and Caleb for helping their mommy with the new baby. More claps. Rachel beamed, phone out, filming. To Tyler for joining the soccer league. Another gift handed off. The room was warm with smiles, laughter, proud gasps. And then the box was closed. Lid snapped shut. Applause ended. That was it. No mention of Sam. No mention of Lucy. Not a word. Sam blinked fast, eyes searching. Lucy tugged on my sleeve. Daddy, did Grandma forget us? Emily reached for my hand. Her grip was steel. I swallowed and said, maybe she's saving ours for midnight. But I knew better. Everyone laughed it off. So cute, someone said. What a fun idea, someone else chimed in. Mark's wife handed out napkins for the cake. I stood there frozen, like my own presence was a joke I hadn't caught the punchline of yet. Emily didn't say a word. She just knelt down, fixed Lucy's headband, and hugged her. I followed her lead, wrapped my arms around Sam, and said nothing. No confrontation. No scene. Just a silent exit. We left before midnight. No fanfare. No goodbye. Just slipped out the door with the weight of silence in our chests. The next morning, I woke up early. Made pancakes for the kids, let them sleep in, tucked their gifts from us under their pillows. Emily sat beside me on the couch with her coffee, staring out the window. Neither of us said anything for a long time. At 9:12 a.m., I picked up my phone. No text from family. No, where'd you go? Or Happy New Year. I opened the group chat. Me, Mark, Rachel, Mom, Dad, and Emily. Typed slowly. Deleted. Typed again. Then I sent it. Hope you enjoyed the celebration. We won't be attending another. And I turned off notifications. That should have been it. But when you set a boundary in a family that feeds off control, they don't let it go that easy. What followed was a spiral of manipulation, guilt-tripping, and gaslighting I didn't see coming. Not like this. The fallout didn't hit right away. That's the thing with families like mine. Everything simmers just beneath the surface. No one ever says what they really mean. They just send passive-aggressive texts, talk behind your back, or worse, pretend nothing happened at all. The group chat went silent after my message. For about a week. No one responded. Not even a thumbs up. No follow-up from Mom. No check-in from Mark. Not even a snide comment from Rachel, which was unusual in itself. I half expected my dad to call, say something dismissive like, don't be dramatic, but nothing came. And in that silence, I started to wonder, had they already decided I didn't matter? Had they already written us off? Emily didn't say much about it. She let me process. She gave me space, but I could tell it was eating at her too. She started keeping her phone face down, muting notifications, sighing a little longer when one of the kids asked, are we going to Grandma's house soon? I didn't know what to tell them. I just said, not this week, and tried to change the subject. Then the texts started trickling in, not from my parents, but from the outer orbit, my Aunt Janice, who always played peacekeeper. Hey honey, just wanted to say I'm sorry about what happened on New Year's. Your mom didn't mean anything by it. That was her version of an olive branch. No ownership. Just a soft brushstroke of let's move on. I didn't respond. Then Rachel posted a photo on Instagram. It was her kids opening presents at my parents' house. The caption read, Late Christmas with Grandma and Grandpa. Thankful for a family that shows up. I stared at that post for a long time. I wasn't tagged. Emily wasn't tagged. Sam and Lucy weren't in the background. It was like we'd been erased. That was when I felt it, something deep in my chest. Not just hurt, not just disappointment. Something colder, something heavier. A kind of grief, maybe. The realization that I'd been making excuses for people who didn't think twice about excluding my kids. I showed the post to Emily. She looked at it for a second, then just said, she wants you to react. Don't give her that. I nodded, but it still burned. Then came my mom's text. It was a Saturday morning, a couple weeks into January. Sam had just come home from a basketball game, and Lucy was showing off a drawing she made for her teacher. I was making lunch when my phone buzzed. Mom, hey sweetheart. I hope you're all doing well. We've been thinking of the kids a lot. Any chance they'd want to come to Mason's birthday party next weekend? Just the kids. No mention of me. No apology. No explanation. Just a casual invitation like nothing happened. I stared at the message. Read it 3 times. Emily leaned over my shoulder. Are you serious? I didn't reply. I walked outside, phone in hand, and just stood in the cold air for a while. The next day, Mark texted. Mark, look, I know you're upset, but you kinda overreacted, man. The gifts weren't a big deal. Mom just did something spontaneous. It wasn't meant to exclude anyone. I could feel my ears getting hot. Overreacted. I thought about Sam, staring at that silver box with wide, hopeful eyes, waiting for his name to be called. I thought about Lucy's confusion, her asking me why Grandma didn't have a present for her. I thought about my own chest tightening as I smiled through it all so my kids wouldn't feel the sting I felt. And I overreacted? I typed out a reply. Me. If it wasn't a big deal, then why didn't anyone notice that my kids were the only ones who didn't get anything? Mark replied an hour later. Mark, I don't know, man. Maybe they just didn't do anything gift-worthy this year. No offense, but you've kinda distanced them from the family anyway. That was the moment something snapped. I called Emily into the room. Showed her the text. She didn't even blink. There it is, she said. I didn't reply to him. Instead, I sat down and started writing things down. Just bullet points at first. Instances I'd let slide. Comments, exclusions, slights. Things I'd tucked into the back of my mind and labeled not worth fighting over. But looking at them all in one list, it was undeniable. Sam's birthday party last year. My parents didn't come. They had a dentist appointment with Mark's family that magically lasted 6 hours. Lucy's ballet recital. Mom showed up halfway through and left before it ended. When Sam won second place in the science fair, I sent a photo to the group chat. Rachel sent a thumbs up. No one else responded. I'd spent years brushing this stuff off, pretending it wasn't targeted, telling myself I was just being sensitive. But now it was bleeding over into my kids' lives. And that's where I drew the line. I didn't send the kids to Mason's party. Instead, I took them out that weekend. Trampoline park, burgers, movie night. Emily and I made the whole day about them. They didn't even ask about their cousins. But on Monday, I got a call from my dad. That was rare. Hey, I said, keeping my voice flat. Jake, he said, we need to talk. About this behavior. You're setting a bad example for the kids. Rachel said Lucy told Mason she wasn't allowed to go to his party because their grandma didn't love her. I felt something twist in my stomach. That's not what we told her. Well, it's what she said. And now Rachel's upset. I let out a slow breath. Maybe Rachel should have thought about that before posting that picture. Dad sighed, like I was exhausting. You've always taken things too personally. I'm calling because I want to fix this. Fix it how? Well, maybe we could all get together. Talk it out. Clear the air. I sent a message saying we wouldn't be attending anything else. I said. That includes talks. Silence. Then he said, so you're punishing everyone for something that wasn't even malicious? I almost laughed. You keep calling it not malicious as if that changes how it felt. Another pause. You're being selfish, Jake. Click. I didn't even realize I'd ended the call until I saw the home screen light up again with another incoming call. Emily came into the room, saw my face, and said, enough. Let's cut them out. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But part of me still hesitated. That part of me that grew up believing family was everything. That part of me that remembered Christmas mornings and summer BBQs and my mom singing along to oldies in the kitchen. I wasn't ready to torch the bridge, but I was ready to build a better one. One where my kids didn't have to sit at the bottom of a hierarchy they didn't create. That's when I started planning something different. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. But I was done playing defense. Then came the final straw. It was the first week of February. Lucy came home from school with a handmade Valentine's card. She'd written one for everyone she loved. Me, Emily, Sam, even our dog. She made one for Grandma too. I found her in the kitchen taping it to an envelope. What's that, sweetheart? I asked. She smiled. I'm mailing this to Grandma. I want her to know I still love her, even if she forgot. That sentence hit me like a freight train. Even if she forgot. I didn't stop her. I drove her to the mailbox myself. A week later, Lucy asked if Grandma got her card. I said I didn't know. The next day, Rachel posted another picture. It was a stack of cards on my parents' kitchen table. The caption read, so grateful for all the love. The grandkids are the sweetest love letter. I zoomed in. Every card was from her kids. Mason's handwriting. Grace's pink crayon. Caleb's scribbles. Lucy's wasn't there. Emily saw it too. She didn't say a word. She just walked out of the room. That night, I sat in the garage, staring at the old boxes of family photos we never unpacked when we moved. And something settled in me. Something cold. Something quiet. Not rage, clarity. They weren't going to change. They weren't going to wake up one day and realize what they'd done. There would be no apology, no reckoning, no acknowledgement. Just more parties we weren't invited to. More milestones they'd miss. More passive-aggressive texts and photos with us cropped out. But I wasn't going to let them rewrite the story. I was going to write a new one. And they were going to watch it unfold. But I needed a plan. And I needed to start with something small. Something symbolic. Just enough to let them know. We saw everything. And we weren't staying quiet anymore. The house was quiet that night. Too quiet. Lucy had gone to bed early after brushing her teeth in silence. Sam played on his tablet with that same blank stare he wore the day his team lost their first tournament. Emily had curled up on the couch under a blanket, not saying much. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the occasional whir of the heat kicking on, and the soft creak of the walls settling. But inside me, everything was loud. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I hadn't touched, staring at the phone screen like it might suddenly spit out an apology. Something, anything, that could undo what Lucy had felt. What I had felt. But all it offered was the same post from Rachel. The one with the stack of cards. No Lucy. No acknowledgement. Just a curated display of love that excluded us entirely. I thought I'd grown used to the feeling of being overlooked, of being the afterthought, the he means well sibling. But that night, something shifted. It wasn't just that they didn't see me. It was that they didn't want to. They didn't want to acknowledge that I was raising two kind, thoughtful kids who had never once caused drama, who went out of their way to make cards for people who didn't even bother to remember their names at the dinner table. They didn't want to admit that maybe, just maybe, they were wrong. That's when it really hit me. I had spent so many years trying to win approval from people who had already made up their minds. The next few days passed in a fog. I went to work, came home, helped with homework, and kept up the facade of normalcy for the kids. But inside, I was unraveling. I stopped replying to extended family texts. I muted the family group chat. I started sleeping less and walking more. Long walks in the early morning when the world was still dark and I could be alone with the cold. One morning, I walked past the park where I used to take Sam when he was still in diapers. The bench we used to sit on was covered in frost. I remembered how he used to point at the ducks and laugh like it was the funniest thing in the world. I remembered how proud I was the first time he said "dada." And I realized I'd lost that part of myself. Not because of them. Because I let them take it from me. I let them chip away at my confidence with every subtle jab, every backhanded comment, every moment of erasure. I let them make me feel small in my own story. And I was done. The first thing I did was take Lucy to the post office. Let's send another card, I said. But this time, to someone who'll really appreciate it. She looked confused. Who? I thought for a second. Your teacher. You said she liked your drawings, right? Lucy beamed. She said mine made her smile all week. Perfect, I said. Let's send her some sunshine. That tiny shift changed something. For her. For me. It was like a reset. A reminder that we didn't need permission to give love, and we sure didn't need validation to be proud of who we were. I started rebuilding, quietly. No dramatic declarations. No social media posts. Just small, intentional acts that slowly pulled me out of that fog. I enrolled Lucy in an art class she'd been too nervous to try. I showed up early to every one of Sam's basketball games and cheered louder than I ever had. I made pancakes every Saturday and let them pick the toppings, even when that meant rainbow sprinkles and whipped cream for breakfast. I started going to therapy too. At first, I felt silly, sitting in a quiet office talking about my parents like I was 15 again. But after a few sessions, it clicked. You've been grieving something that never existed, my therapist said one afternoon. The idea of a family that sees you, values you. And every time they prove that idea wrong, it reopens the wound. I sat with that for a long time. It was true. I wasn't just angry. I was mourning. Not just for me, but for the father I wanted my dad to be. For the mother who I hoped would fight for my kids the way she used to fight for Mark's. For the siblings I'd always imagined would be my support system in adulthood. They didn't exist. And once I let go of the fantasy, I had space to build something real. Emily noticed the change. You've been calmer, she said one night as we folded laundry. Not quiet, just more centered. I smiled. I stopped waiting for them to change. It didn't happen all at once. There were still moments that stung. A birthday party we weren't invited to. A family photo posted without us. Comments like, "Miss seeing you guys," that felt more like paper cuts than genuine remorse. But I got better at brushing them off. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared more about protecting what I was building here. In this house. With Emily and the kids. In March, Sam won his regional science competition. He built a water filtration model out of recycled materials, and when they called his name, his face lit up like he'd just touched the stars. After the ceremony, he came running up to me. "Did you see? Dad, did you see?" "I saw everything, buddy." He looked around. "Do you think Grandpa would be proud?" That question hit me like a punch. I crouched down, looked him in the eyes, and said, "I'm proud. That's what matters." He nodded slowly, and that was the last time he asked. By April, I was starting to feel something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. I cleaned out the garage, donated old furniture, organized the kids' artwork into frames, and started hanging them in the hallway. Our hallway became our gallery. Each piece was a badge of joy, a celebration of little moments no one else had thought to see. Emily suggested we take a weekend trip, just the four of us. Nothing big, just a cabin by the lake, some hiking trails, and a chance to unplug. We went in early May. There was no cell signal, no internet, just birdsong in the morning, the sound of water lapping against the dock, and the smell of Emily's coffee brewing before sunrise. We roasted marshmallows, played card games. Sam caught a fish and wouldn't stop talking about it for days. Lucy painted the lake with watercolors. Emily read books on the porch, and I watched them all, feeling something in my chest expand. Not in a loud, triumphant way, in a quiet, steady way, like breathing after holding your breath for too long. That weekend, I made a decision. I was done being passive, done waiting for them to notice what they'd lost. They wouldn't, and that was fine, but they were still posting, still parading their curated version of family on Facebook and Instagram, still presenting themselves as the warm, loving grandparents with a house full of laughter. And I knew it wasn't true, so I started documenting our own story, not for revenge, for record. I created a private Instagram, just for us, just for the moments that mattered. Emily baking with Lucy, Sam presenting his science project, our hikes, our inside jokes, our pancake Saturdays. No hashtags, no captions fishing for approval, just truth. Eventually, people noticed. Old family friends, former neighbors, co-workers. They'd comment quietly, "Your kids look so happy. You seem so grounded. Looks like a beautiful life." And it was. Without them, that realization was both painful and liberating. It was June when I got the letter. Not a text, not an email, an actual letter in my mailbox, addressed in my mother's handwriting. I stood in the driveway for 10 full minutes before opening it. Inside was a folded card. On the front, a picture of a tree. Inside, just one line: "We'd like to talk. Before the holidays." No signature. I brought it inside, laid it on the counter, and stared at it. Emily picked it up. "Read it. Put it back down." Then she said, "That's not an apology." "No," I said. "It's an opening." To what? That was the question. Part of me wanted to respond, to see if they'd changed, to give them the benefit of the doubt. But another part of me, the part that had rebuilt brick by brick, wasn't sure if I wanted to let them in again. I didn't answer right away. I let the summer pass. We built memories instead. And quietly, behind the scenes, I started planning something bigger, something they wouldn't see coming, something that wasn't about proving a point, but about setting one in stone. Because while I had found peace, they hadn't seen the cost of their choices. Not yet, but they would. The letter stayed on the kitchen counter for 3 days. By the time I finally picked it up again, the edges had curled slightly, absorbing the weight of our silence. I stared at the words, "We'd like to talk. Before the holidays." As if there might be something I missed, some hint of regret hidden between the lines. But no, it wasn't an apology. It was a preemptive move, a warning shot disguised as diplomacy. And the timing wasn't random. Summer was ending, and the holidays were inching closer. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all the days that were once ours before they slowly stopped including us. I didn't tell Emily right away what I decided. I wasn't even sure it was a decision yet. But something had started to take shape in my mind. Not an outburst, not a confrontation, something quieter, smarter, something they wouldn't see coming. Because here's what I'd learned. They never see it coming when the scapegoat stops playing along. I started with the will. Not mine, theirs. See, a few years back, before everything fractured, my dad had insisted on making things official. He invited all 3 of us kids over one weekend, me, Mark, and Rachel, to talk about estate planning. It was a formal conversation over wine and cheese about what would happen to the house, the business shares, the lake property. At the time, I didn't care. I was uncomfortable just being in the same room while they divvied up assets that weren't even cold yet. But what I remembered, what stuck, was that Mark had insisted on being the executor. And Dad, of course, agreed. Rachel nodded along like it was all fair and reasonable. And me? I nodded too, even though I felt something gnawing in my gut. That night, Mark said to me in the kitchen, "It's just logistics, Jake. You're the furthest away anyway. As if that explained everything. But now, with the letter on the table and silence still humming in the group chat, I realized I needed to know more. Not out of greed, out of strategy. So I made a call. Not to my parents. To Eli. Eli and I had been roommates in college. He became an estate lawyer. We hadn't talked in years, but we were still connected on LinkedIn, and I knew he'd kept his practice small and private, just the way I needed it. When I told him I needed some guidance on family planning, he didn't hesitate. We met for lunch the next day. Over sandwiches and coffee, I explained everything. Not just the recent drama, but the years of subtle exclusion. The birthday parties. The favoritism. The final straw with Lucy's Valentine. Eli didn't interrupt much. Just listened and nodded, eyes sharp. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "So what do you want to do? Cut ties?" I shook my head. "No. I want to protect what's mine. And I want to be ready." He nodded. "All right. Then we start with your assets. Your will. Your trusts. Because if they ever come knocking, especially if your parents pass and Mark's in charge, you need everything airtight. I can also request a public record search. If they filed a will, it might be accessible, depending on how they structured it." 2 days later, Eli called me back. "They've got a trust set up, standard stuff. The house, the accounts, the property. Mark's the executor. Rachel's the secondary. You're mentioned, but not equally." I exhaled slowly. "Figures. Want to know what stood out?" "Sure. They've already transferred partial ownership of the lake property to Mark and Rachel. It's a quitclaim deed, filed last year." My stomach dropped. The lake property. The one my grandfather built. The one we all used to visit as kids. The one my father promised, years ago, would be shared equally. "This land belongs to the whole family," he'd said. Turns out, whole family meant something different to him. I didn't tell Emily right away. I needed time to think. Instead, I started laying the groundwork. Step 1, tighten my circle. I told Emily everything a few nights later after the kids went to bed. She didn't even blink. Just nodded and said, "We protect our kids. Period." Then I called my cousin Ben. Ben was the family outlier, like me. Grew up being compared to Mark and Rachel. The difference was, he stopped attending family functions 5 years ago after a fight over money and never looked back. We reconnected after I saw him liking one of our family photos on Instagram. When I told him what had happened over the holidays, he said, "Jake, I cut them out for a reason. You're just late to the party." "Yeah," I muttered. "But I want to do more than walk away." Ben chuckled. "You want to flip the script?" Exactly. Ben was in tech now, ran a media agency that specialized in brand image, digital storytelling, and reputation management. He'd built his own following by exposing fake family influencers, calling out curated toxicity with receipts. "You've got 2 things going for you," he said. 1, truth. 2, a documented history. You've kept everything. Photos, messages, proof. Most people don't have that. So what do I do with it? Ben leaned in. "You tell your story, but not yet. Not loudly. First, you show the people who matter that your life is better without them. That you're not bitter, you're thriving." That's when it clicked. I wasn't going to argue with them. I wasn't going to confront them. I was going to erase them back. Slowly, quietly. Step 2, reclaim the legacy. I'd spent my whole life letting them control the narrative. The Jake's just different narrative. The Jake keeps his distance excuse. The version of me that fit neatly into their hierarchy. But now, I had something they didn't expect, momentum. I reached out to the local historical society near the lake property. My grandfather, it turns out, had done a lot for the community, volunteered during floods, ran the summer fishing derby for kids, built the first dock with his own hands. They had records, photos, newspaper clippings. I asked if I could contribute. By the end of the week, I was helping them create a legacy wall dedicated to my grandfather's contributions. And on that wall, I made sure there was a photo of me, age 10, holding a fish with Grandpa, standing right on that dock. It was small, but it was mine. Step 3, go quiet. I didn't respond to the letter. Didn't reply to the follow-up text Rachel sent in October. "Are you guys coming to Thanksgiving? Mom's making your favorite stuffing." I didn't block them. I just became untraceable. No updates. No responses. No access. I turned our private Instagram into a newsletter instead. The 4 of us became a monthly email I sent to a curated list of real friends, Emily's parents, a few of the kids' teachers. I shared stories, Sam's science updates, Lucy's art projects, Our lake weekend memories, Emily's herb garden progress. It was personal, honest, and completely outside the reach of my parents, Mark and Rachel. We stopped being the forgotten ones. We became the unreachable ones. Step 4. Prepare the reveal. I wasn't planning to go public anytime soon. I wasn't planning to confront them in some dramatic Thanksgiving scene. But I did have something in mind. Ben helped me set up a private server, a cloud-based drive where I could upload photos, documents, text exchanges, and a full written record of our experience, organized chronologically. It was password protected, just in case. I'm not saying drop it now, he said. But if they ever try to smear you, if they ever start spinning the Jake abandoned the family narrative, you have this. I added to it little by little. The photo of Lucy's handmade card, screenshots of ignored texts, video clips of Sam's award ceremony, unclicked in the group chat, Rachel's Instagram captions, Dad's voicemail, the estate record showing the transfer of the lake house. All of it, quietly, carefully documented. Not to share yet, but to keep. For the moment they pushed too far. And something told me they would. The final step was the clean break. In early November, I wrote a letter. Not to them. To myself. I wrote everything I wanted to say, but never would. I poured it all out. The disappointment, the anger, the guilt, the grief. I let myself mourn the parents I thought I had, the siblings I wanted, the idea of a united family. Then I folded it up, put it in an envelope, wrote, "Enough," on the front, sealed it. I burned it in the fireplace that night while Emily sat beside me, the kids asleep upstairs. And when the flames died down, I felt lighter. It wasn't closure, but it was peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting. I wasn't hoping. I was ready. Ready for the holidays. Ready for the final play. Because when the invitations arrived, when they dared to send another photo, another text, another card designed to guilt us back into submission, I'd be holding all the cards. And they wouldn't even know it. Not yet, but soon. It came, as I knew it would, 2 weeks before Christmas. A glossy envelope in our mailbox, addressed to the Armstrong family, handwritten in my mother's careful, almost obsessive cursive. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on the dining table while I made tea, while Emily wrapped gifts in the other room, while Lucy hummed carols under her breath and Sam stared into the fireplace, lost in thought. The envelope caught the light like it knew what it was carrying, like it had purpose. I opened it after the kids went to bed. Inside was a tri-folded card with a gold-embossed pinecone wreath on the front. Inside, printed in elegant script, "Please join us for our annual Armstrong family Christmas brunch. December 24th at 10 a.m. Bringing together the ones we love most. Pajamas encouraged, mimosas provided." And just below, in ballpoint pen, "Would love to see the kids. Let's reconnect." No signature, no apology, just a passive invitation designed to rewrite the narrative. Pretend nothing happened. Paint us as the ones who withdrew. Emily found me standing by the sink, the card still in my hand. "They sent it, huh?" I nodded. "They're trying to play nice before they rewrite the story." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "Are we ready?" I looked at her, and something in me settled. Yeah, we are. The revenge, if you can even call it that, wasn't loud. It wasn't a dramatic speech at the Christmas table or a tearful confrontation in the snow. It was surgical, clean, measured. It began with the reply. I wrote back, not with sarcasm, not with anger, with clarity. "Thank you for the invitation. We will not be attending. We've made other plans this year and going forward. Please respect our space. We wish you the best." I sent it by registered mail. A signature required. They received it 2 days later. No response. But I knew that wouldn't be the end. Sure enough, Rachel posted a photo the next week. Her living room decked out like a Hallmark set, her kids in matching reindeer onesies, Mark and his wife in the background laughing with glasses of eggnog. And the caption? "No matter how hard the year gets, we choose love, grace, and family. We're stronger together." A subtle shot across the bow. A setup. Then, a comment appeared under the post. From one of Rachel's followers. A mutual we both knew from years ago. "Where's Jake and his family? Miss seeing their adorable kids in these." Rachel responded with a heart emoji and, "Some people choose distance. We still love them." That was the spark I'd been waiting for. Not to lash out. To correct the record. I opened the cloud drive Ben had helped me build. I scrolled through the folders. One in particular had been building all year. Evidence of exclusion. I copied the public link and added a simple message. Just for those curious about our distance. Truth matters. I posted it beneath Rachel's comment. And then I logged off. The reaction was quiet at first. A few likes. A few DMs from people who had followed our family for years and always wondered why we seemed to vanish. Then, a ripple. Ben called me later that night, grinning through the phone. Dude, you dropped a nuke wrapped in ribbon. I didn't lie. You didn't have to. The screenshots speak for themselves. Because that's what it was, a quiet, methodical documentation of every erasure, every text ignored, every photo cropped. The silver box on New Year's with Lucy and Sam sitting empty-handed. The group chat messages left on read. The voicemail from my father calling me selfish. The estate documents showing the lake house transfer. I didn't add commentary. I didn't need to. Within 24 hours, the post was gone. Rachel had deleted it, comments and all, but not before the screenshots made it around. People saw it. People finally saw it. I got texts from distant cousins, messages from family friends, even an email from a former neighbor who'd once asked if we were okay, but never followed up. I had no idea. Your kids didn't deserve that. Thank you for sharing the truth. I always wondered why you stopped showing up. Now I understand. It wasn't about dragging them through the mud. It was about reclaiming the story. They weren't the victims. They were the architects. And now, the narrative was out of their hands. But I didn't stop there. Remember the Historical Society project? I made a second submission. An essay, titled Legacy and Loss, a Grandson's Reflection on Inheritance and Integrity. It was about my grandfather, about the dock he built and the way he welcomed all of us grandkids equally, about the quiet integrity he carried that seemed to vanish with the next generation. I didn't name names. I didn't point fingers. But I told the truth. The essay was published in their winter newsletter, shared across the town's mailing list, framed in the welcome center by the lake, just beneath that same photo of me and Grandpa holding the fish. My father saw it. I know he did. He didn't call. He sent a single email. I wish you hadn't done that. Some things are meant to stay private. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, respect is earned. Silence is not love. No answer. Christmas morning came. Snow fell in soft sheets. The kids woke up late. Older now, less frantic, but still wide-eyed when they saw the presents. Emily made cinnamon rolls from scratch. We played board games, watched movies, opened gifts with no rush, no anxiety, no false smiles. It was just us, the four of us. The Armstrongs they forgot, the Armstrongs they underestimated. Sam gave me a hug before bed and said, "This was the best Christmas ever." Lucy added, "I didn't miss anything." I smiled. Me neither. The fallout? Predictable. The group chat eventually burst to life with carefully worded outrage. Mark sent a message. "What you did was cruel. You aired private family matters." Rachel chimed in. "You humiliated Mom. She's been crying for days." Mom herself wrote a separate message. "You broke my heart, Jake. I was trying to fix things." And Dad? He didn't message. He called. I didn't answer. I sent a photo instead. It was Lucy's Valentine's card, the one they never acknowledged. Underneath, I added a caption. "This was your moment to fix things. You chose to ignore it. We chose not to be ignored anymore." I left the group chat after that, deleted it from my phone, blocked the numbers. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vindictive. I was done. Ben told me later, "You didn't just win. You rewrote the ending." And maybe that's true. But to me, it didn't feel like winning. It felt like healing. It felt like carving out space in the world where my children never had to question their worth, where they never had to shrink themselves to fit someone else's comfort, where love wasn't conditional, where family meant belonging. And that was worth everything. As I tucked Lucy in that night, she asked, "Will we ever go back to Grandma's?" I kissed her forehead. "No, sweetie. We don't go where we're not celebrated." She smiled sleepily. "Good." Then she rolled over and fell asleep in peace. So did I, for the first time in years. And in that silence, I understood something my parents never did. Sometimes, the real inheritance isn't land or money. It's the freedom to walk away and the power to never look back.